Hello, I'm Sally Lewis, a member of the Caring Committee, and I'm here to talk to you about our lives. Amid all the noise in our lives, we take this moment to sit in silence and to acknowledge recent tragedy, terror, violence, anguish, bloodshed descending on the Israeli and Palestinian people. How do we reconcile these horrors? The urge to raise our fists, to bury our heads, to mourn the loss of peace. How do we reconcile these moments with the happiness in our everyday lives? How do we hold the others, those in Ukraine, Afghanistan, Latin America, in our hearts while bombarded with news from the Middle East? And how do we find peace within ourselves when our global family is so very desperate? Each of us must find a way in the dark times to give thanks for another day, to give thanks for those who've brought us warmth and love, and to unashamedly embrace our personal joys. Come, let us be together, a community that works towards peace, that holds its arms open to hope, that honors the feelings of others, a community that doesn't put fences around love. Let us be together, admitting the darkness, hoping for the peace, while we, without guilt or embarrassment, nurture the joy in being alive. Let us admit the tragedy as we welcome life's blessings.
Good morning. The Time to Choose Happiness is Right Now, Not After, by Jeffrey Gitomer, who is a business trainer and motivational speaker. The word after is self-defeating. It robs you of the present and resigns you to wait without taking any action. When you use it, you convince yourself that life will be better after something. After you get a new job, after you get a better job, after you get more money, after you get out of debt, after the economy rebounds, after your stocks go back up, after you get that big order. You can also use it to convince yourself that life will be better after an event. After you get married, after you have a baby, after you get a new house, after you take a vacation, after you come back from vacation, after summer is over, or some other action. The truth is, the fact is, the reality is, there is no better time to be happy than right now. If not now, when? Your life will always be filled with challenges, barriers, and disappointments. It's best to admit this to yourself and decide to be happy anyway. The Australian inspirational writer and philosopher Alfred Sousa said, "For a long, long time, it had seemed to me that I was about to begin real life. But there was always some obstacle in the way, something to be gotten through first, some unfinished business, and there time still to be served, a debt to be paid. Then life would begin. At last it dawned on me that these obstacles were my life. There is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. There is no after to happiness. Happiness is now. Happiness is inside your head first, and then every place else. Happiness is a treasure. Your missed opportunity is to treasure every moment that you have. Stop waiting. It's not after you finish school, or after you go back to school, or after you lose 10 pounds, or after you have kids, or after you quit smoking, or after your kids leave the house, or after you start work, or after you retire, or after you get married, or after you get divorced, or after you get your new car or home, or after you've had a drink, or after you've sobered up, or after you win the lottery, or after the cows come home. There is no better time than right now to be happy. Seems pretty simple to define on paper, but difficult to manifest when the chips are down. My experience has taught me the difference between resign and resolve. You can resign yourself to what is and hope or wait for a better day, or you can resolve that you are a positive person who finds the good, the positive, the happiness, the smile, and especially the opportunity in everything. Happiness is now, not a goal or a destination. It's not an after, it's a before.
Good morning. Our second reading this morning comes from research at Harvard about the many ways to increase happiness. Here are 8 interesting takeaways about relationships, money, and lifestyle choices. First, we tend to be happier when we connect with other people. Relationships are vital for our long-term happiness. In fact, psychologists say that healthy relationships are the most important factor in determining happiness. This is because we have a strong biological need for connection and belonging. And interestingly, both strong and weak relationships do matter. Second, love is our supreme emotion, and the capacity to love and be loved is one of the most reliable ways to raise our bar on the level of happiness. The absence of loving connections breeds loneliness, which can trigger a whole host of health issues. Third, you could have a successful career, money, and good physical health, but without supportive, loving relationships, you'd likely be unhappy. The ability to take in and share love is a great human skill. Fourth, regarding money, more won't necessarily make you happier, but finding meaningful work and a little extra time usually will. Giving yourself the gift of more time, if you can afford it, can be a quick and beneficial addition to a happier life. So when you're deciding how to spend your money, consider buying some more time. The Harvard researchers found that spending money on convenience items and time-saving services can help lower stress and make us happier. Fifth, ideally, we will find work that has meaning to us, but not everybody can quit their day job and pursue full-time volunteer work, such as joining the Peace Corps or Teach for America. As a result, it's important that we cultivate ways to find fulfillment in our day-to-day work, either in our employment or unpaid work at home. Sixth, volunteering is positively linked to health benefits like lower blood pressure and decreased mortality rates. We also know that volunteering builds your resilience. That is, your ability to bounce back from trauma, grief, and other small and large inevitable setbacks in life. Seventh, being kind to others is a proven path toward happiness. And don't forget to be kind and take care of yourself as well. And lastly, generosity makes people happier. Several studies have found that people who behaved generously were happier compared to people who made selfish decisions. In fact, just thinking about being generous can trigger a happiness reaction in our brains.
I just have to acknowledge, it might be hard for some of you to be hearing this happiness topic after all the things that have happened, but I just want to thank the team because this was done so many weeks and weeks in advance, and it's still something we need. So thank you. Thank you for putting yourselves, at least for this sole hour, to realize life has both pain and happiness, but I want to talk to you about happiness. We are living in a world desperate for formulas and simple answers to the question, why can't I be happy? What makes people happy? People have sought the answer to this question for thousands of years, but in the past 2 decades, there has been an explosion of scientific research on the topic. Pennsylvania University professor Martin Seligman is referred to as the father of positive psychology and is often thought to be one of the leading researchers in general. Over 50 years ago, he launched the field of positive psychology as he was frustrated with the discipline's overly narrow focus on the negative. So much attention was paid to mental illness, abnormal psychology, trauma, suffering, pain, and relatively little attention was dedicated to happiness, well-being, and flourishing. His influence led to today's science of happiness, a rapidly expanding body of research that seeks to uncover what contributes to a meaningful and happy life. I've been journeying these last 15 years on my own discovery path on the subject of happiness and well-being. I hope that by giving you some of the science, you'll understand that there are some misconceptions as to what will provide lasting happiness. The field is full of gurus who've written books, produced YouTube or TED videos, and host weekly podcasts. I'm going to focus on just a few of the influential voices and give you a small look at a very big topic. Even universities have jumped on the bandwagon and offer courses. The first one I took was Yale's online class called The Science of Well-Being, provided for free through Coursera.org and taught by Professor Laurie Santos. It morphed from the original 2018 course called Psychology and the Good Life, as it quickly became the most popular in Yale's history with more than 1,000 students enrolled. Drawing on scientific research polls about what people think will lead to happiness became the bedrock of the course after the alarming statistics showed that fewer than 20% of Americans said they were very happy. Other polls showed that only 49% of Americans were more optimistic than pessimistic about the state of the world. And there are many conceivable reasons for our national saddening: the COVID-19 pandemic, political division, mass shootings, our addiction to social media platforms that deliver us doom and gloom news 24/7, and all the wars that are happening. These are just a few of the things impacting our happiness. There's no single explanation for the rampant unhappiness, but Santos says it goes back to the way humans are wired. Our brains are good at lots of things, but making us happy isn't one of them. Often, Santos says, the brain is an active saboteur. After a long day, it tells you what you really need is a pint of ice cream and a Netflix binge, when in fact, research shows you'd be better served by calling a friend, getting some exercise, doing just about anything besides zoning out. Or your brain convinces you that you need a fancy job, a huge salary, or hundreds of followers on Facebook to be happy, when these external accomplishments often bring only fleeting satisfaction. Natural selection isn't into us being happy, Santos says. It would prefer we drove ourselves into the ground, trying to survive, reproduce, and get the most resources. It's not in it for joy. Santos's class delves into the research around what people think will make them happy. Her students almost always think it's money, status, and good grades, when actually the science suggests things that ensure both physical and mental health, such as sleep, exercise, good nutrition, community, gratitude, mindfulness, and finding meaning in everyday life are the true ingredients for happiness. Another influencer I follow is Arthur Brooks. He's a Harvard professor. He's a PhD social scientist, a #1 best-selling author, and a columnist at The Atlantic. He uses data, science, and philosophy as a roadmap for finding success, happiness, and deep purpose in life. He provides people with common sense strategies to live their best lives. He writes books, he has a podcast, and a weekly column in The Atlantic called The Good Life. If you have a few hours to spare and you're interested in this topic, you could catch him on many YouTube videos, and maybe you could even read his 12th book called From Strength to Strength. A small group of us did that as a book club item 2 summers ago, and we really liked it. He talks about how older people could embrace the change in your fluid intelligence to your other kind of intelligence, wisdom, and you could find life offers you happiness even as your abilities fade and your career declines. It's all good stuff, so I would recommend you looking him up, Arthur Brooks. So my favorite takeaway from Arthur came from watching his 15-minute TED Talk, and it's why I entitled this talk that I'm giving called The Nutrients of Happiness. His philosophy is that everyone wants to be happier, but most people don't know how to do it, how to define it. When he asks his Harvard students, what is happiness? Many will say, it's the feeling I get when, and then they fill in the blank. But he says, no, happiness is the combination of 3 big things. They're kind of like the macronutrients in food, which are proteins, carbohydrates, and fat, all necessary for a completely nutritious meal. So a complete definition of happiness is also comprised of 3 elements, and they are enjoyment, purpose and meaning, and satisfaction. Enjoyment is not the same as pleasure. Pleasure is something that happens to you. It runs through a very ancient part of your brain called the limbic system. It's a reward for something that happens automatically so that you'll do something again and again. Enjoyment is an elevation of that, where you take pleasure, but you add your true humanity to it. You experience it with other people. You move it literally to a different part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex. It's there that you remember it, and it becomes part of your happiness. So remember the food analogy? The good meal gives you pleasure by filling your belly, and then enjoyment comes from consuming that delicious meal with family or friends, the people that you care about. That ensures enjoyment and manifests into part of your happiness. And it's so appropriate that we talked about the congregational dinners coming up, because that's all our opportunity to do just what he's saying, get enjoyment and happiness with people and food. Okay, purpose and meaning are not so straightforward. Everybody knows they want meaning in life, but they can't quite define it, and it's hard to find. The great paradox of meaning is that as part of happiness, it requires suffering. When one talks about resiliency, often they talk about suffering, about challenges, about loss, about grief, even when their heart was broken, when someone they loved died and they survived. That's when they find true meaning in life. The irony of that is that happiness requires unhappiness to get meaning. And lastly, satisfaction is the most difficult of the elements for us to master. Satisfaction is the great question of life. We want it, we try to get it, but we can't keep it. Now, why is that? Satisfaction is a joy and a reward for a goal. You know that feeling when you get it. You'll be satisfied, like B did a whole reading on it, but he also says you'll be satisfied when you graduate from university, when you marry the person you love, when you get the dream house you always wanted, when you retire after a long career. Then you'll finally be satisfied. You'll feel joyful over the goal that you actually met. However, your brain fooled you into thinking that you'll now be happy forever. But it's wrong. You know it doesn't last. You get that car with the new car smell, and it's wonderful. A few weeks later, it's just a car. You move to California because you want sunshine and beautiful weather. But after 6 months, you're driving around cursing the traffic. We're designed to not stay satisfied with those worldly things due to a concept in neuroscience called homeostasis. Homeostasis is the tendency to go back to a baseline. It's the equilibrium that we need to go back to our preset so that we'll be ready for the next set of circumstances. I'm sure you've all heard about the lottery winner and the paralyzed accident victim study. This was done in 1978 at Northwestern University. One is over the moon with happiness over all that money he's won, and the other is totally devastated by being in a wheelchair. But after 6 months, they both revert back to their natural baseline of happiness. We have biology to thank for that. This is the beauty of our human biology. Another biological phenomenon is that we're hardwired for survival mode. The irony of this whole thing is that we get satisfaction, but we can't keep it. We keep pursuing it, almost like we're on a treadmill, running, chasing, seeking more. Social scientists call this the hedonic treadmill. Hedonic means feeling, and treadmill is a metaphor. You want to get the feeling of joy. You want to get satisfaction. You try, but you're more or less staying in the same place. You never quite figure it out. So you get more and more addicted to the material possessions, to the money, to the power, to the pleasure and the fame. Now the treadmill starts to turn up speed and you're running faster. Pretty soon you're running at breakneck speed. Your world is distorted and you're no longer running for ambition. You're running out of fear that you'll never have enough. Not enough money, not enough prestige, not enough toys, on and on it goes. Well, it's time to break the chain and go contrary to our human nature. Get off the treadmill before you do a face plant. You have to be willing to do the work. The old idea that if it feels good, just do it, is wrong. When it comes to happiness, Mother Nature doesn't care how happy you are. She wants you to pass on your genes. Procreation is the end game. Your happiness is up to you. But you can't go with your instincts. For lasting and stable happiness, you need a formula. Just like a recipe in cooking, here's a formula for happiness. Most people think that satisfaction comes if you have all you want. It needs to be modified into wanting less, not wanting more. The Dalai Lama says it perfectly. We need to learn how to want what we have, not to have what we want, in order to have steady and stable happiness. Arthur sums it up by saying, manage your haves, but keep your wants from sprawling. This last part of the talk will focus on changing society's message that money, power, pleasure, and fame are vital ingredients to a happy life. Arthur says these are the bad four. The good four, those are the ones we want. The true secret to a meaningful life are faith, family, friends, and work. By faith, he's not suggesting a formal religion. He means a sense of grandeur, a sense of the transcendent, a perspective that's bigger than your everyday life, which can be small and tedious. Maybe it comes from a walk out in nature every day for an hour. Maybe it comes from studying the ancient Stoic masters. Maybe it comes from going back to the faith of your youth. Or for some of us, maybe it comes from a meditation or yoga practice. You choose, but you must do something every day that zooms you out. Faith. Your family is next. Excuse me. These are the ties that bind and don't break, the glue that holds it all together for you. Who better than siblings, parents, and other close relatives to reminisce about your childhood? This connection to fond memories, support in times of need, and unconditional love is the unique way that families can bring happiness, stress relief, and a sense of well-being. Families. And the value of friendship can't be overstated. That's why I chose one of those slides up there of myself with my 4 best friends. We're the fabulous 5. I mean, you need your friendships. The value can't be overstated. There are relationships that are inherently satisfying. You genuinely enjoy each other. The time you spend together could often revolve around some activity, but the true reward is that you share common beliefs and passions and things you talk about. You are vulnerable with each other and are open and willing to have deep personal discussions. And thank you, friend, for this water. You know what's going on in each other's lives, and you're able to safely share secrets. Friendship is a skill, and it has to be cultivated. And if you don't practice it, you get bad at it. And another thing, friends, they know you for who you really are, and they love you anyway. Okay, this final element that adds to happiness is having work that is meaningful. In later years, this can be volunteer work as well. Your success shouldn't be measured solely by money and power. Job could be anything, but it must have these characteristics. You must be rewarded for your hard work, your merit, your personal responsibility, and it helps if you're serving other people with some of your endeavors. So look for that work that's satisfying. Okay, so now after nearly 15 minutes of giving you a mini TED Talk on happiness through the insights of science and psychology, I want to end with some personal takeaways. Number one, I'm not saying this is easy, but choose the kind of life you want to live, one full of happiness, contentment, and satisfaction. 2, do not be deterred by the glittering sideshow of commercialism and consumerism. Don't believe that the one with the most toys walks away as the winner. Look to the ordinary, the simple things in life. I like to look for a lot of the free things too. 3, follow the path of life more serene and simplified. Look to the ordinary. 4, look inward for the answers to finding the way to achieve this, and remember relationships. Connecting to others and living in the present are all available to us right now. And as the reading suggested, don't wait to be happy. Being content means enjoying today. And lastly, to paraphrase the words of Thich Nhat Hanh, learn to rest in the knowledge that you bring yourself entirely into the present moment and discover the joy that is already here. May it be so, and may we all remember to have hope in the future and to fully enjoy and live in the present while we're in it. Namaste. Blessed be. May you go out into the day with a spring in your step. May the sun shine upon you. May the moon move the tide of your emotions with every grace and magic. May your heart sing. May your happiness know no bounds, and may your every blessed day be filled with joy and satisfaction. Thank you. Blessed be.